Okay, hello, I'm Alexandra. I'm from Bratislava, from Slovakia, Slovak Film Institute. And having heard presentations of my friends and colleagues, Marketa and Irina, many things are rather similar in our country. Some things are different, but not too different. And having thought of my presentation I was doing yesterday, I realized I took it perhaps from a more general and broader point of view, but as you said, most of the things I would have said I can go on in a more general or case study wise. Slovak Film Institute, very shortly, is a state institution. It's basically, I like saying, it's 80% film archive, 15% film center. We are a rather small unit within the archive. The archive has more than 50 years history, and 1 year more. Last year we were 50. And the film center started being active 10 years ago. We were learning mostly from my Czech friends and from Slovenia and countries that already had their film centers active back then. I joined the film center in 2005. Similarly, like Czech Film Center, we are not a funding body, which has many advantages, a little bit of disadvantages. I wish I would have some budget to really use for promotion and for helping films to get to festivals. But for funding, we have a special institution I will mention in a second. But basically, as a film center, we are working in the same or very similar way as our colleagues. Promotion of Slovak films. In our case, it's the archives and the new films, which makes it more work, but also sometimes more interesting, or it's balanced. You try to help films to get to festivals, like in goEast, we are presenting a Slovak focus, which also gives you a balance between our archives and new films, including shorts and documentaries. Also, we collaborate on networking events and things like that. So that's introduction, and I'm responsible for that, but I'm not alone doing that. I have several colleagues too. As I mentioned, I took it from the other angle. I don't know why I put 2013, but it's still valid today. But Slovakia is a relatively young country, which I think is important to realize all these facts when thinking about the country, even in terms of its cinema and possibilities and options to collaborate with other countries. You know, we used to be Czechoslovakia for decades, but since January 1st, 1993, there are two countries with two separate cinematographies or cinemas. More than 5 million people with this area, small country, but in terms of shooting, which we don't use as much as we could, is really, you find, apart from the sea, which we have in Croatia, we have everything. Bratislava is the capital. I mention it especially because of the psychological distance many people have in their heads. It's really just 60 kilometers. I use Vienna airport, so it's like really short by car and you fly wherever you want. For Budapest, 200, almost nothing. So it's also practical to realize when you are in the region, you want to do some location scouting, find some contacts, thinking of making projects together. We are really close. Official languages, we are Slovaks, but we have really strong Hungarian group. I don't want to call it minority, it's really a lot of them. Some Czechs in the west, Ukrainians in the east, Roma people all over. So if you want to do different cultural aspect films and stuff like that, I think Slovakia offers a lot, at least for the research. And we joined the EU, and we pay with euro, so we travel easily and co-produce relatively easily. Film. Up to 1991, as I mentioned, well, 1993 and 1991, we used to be quite a cool and big film country, together with Czech Republic. You probably have heard of the Czechoslovak New Wave. It is written in this way on purpose, because sometimes people read Czechoslovak and understand only Czech, so it's also part of my job to stress the second part of the word. And names like Uher, Hanak, Jakubisko, Solan, if you haven't heard of them, please look them up. You also have a chance here in goEast. We are showing a wonderful film that we actually world premiered in a restored version, in a beautifully restored version in Karlovy Vary last year. It's showing tomorrow. So just to give you some overview, and what is also interesting in terms of our topic here, all of those names and a lot of other names were also involved in documentaries and shorts. And for example, by Peter Solan, you find wonderful, interesting, provocative short documentaries dealing with the topics of the Second World War, his experience as a Slovak Jew. Dušan Hanak made even short film comedies. Actually, one of his short films was shown in the opening of goEast, called Old Shatterhand Came to Meet Us, which is a really terrific film, and you can see them on the films, for example. Okay, I mentioned 1991 and 1993 on purpose, because then, unlike in Czech Republic, our cinema industry collapsed. We lost our studios to brothers and sisters and cousins of the Prime Minister and other members of the government. And it took really, let's say, almost 20 years to come back to a certain quality and to regain some name. And I just chose several figures. I don't want to go too much into figures, but you can see in 1993 there were basically three Slovak full-length films for cinemas, and thereof one was a co-production. So basically, let's talk about two Slovak films in 1993. 2003, five of them minorities. 2004, really poor, basically one Slovak film if you don't want to count the minority. And then it started growing. The reason is simple. You can also see the division between fiction and documentaries. There has always been a certain balance. In the 90s, the funding there was no system. There was funding, but there was no system. And this is not a place to be discussing that situation, which still needs to be somehow elaborated by the experts. But the point is, in 2003, a special program at the Ministry of Culture was established, which was active until 2009, and they were trying to add up more money every year. But then in 2009, finally, the Slovak Audiovisual Fund was created as a public institution, not only depending on state budget, but also bringing to the fund finances from other sources like, I don't know, TV operators, commercial revenues, very similarly as the models that work in Europe. And I wrote since 2010, because that was the year that actually the fund was giving out first money for the first time. You see the website. If you don't speak Slovak, don't search for any updated English information there, but we prepared a section on that on our information website, which is this aic.sk. I did not go into many details about the functioning of the fund, which is rather traditional and similar to many countries. Also the percentages and the requirements. You can all find it on the website, or if you take these green catalogs, it has a guide section in the end, and everything is there. But just to mention, the annual budget is around 6 million euro. It started with 5, now it's 6. To compare, the Ministry of Culture before 2009 would be the half of it, more or less, depending on the state debt and the taxes and everything. But this is more or less the amount of money we've had in the fund for the last 2 years. It's divided into 4 programs. 2 most interesting for film production and students are Program 1, which has schemes for development, production, post-production, including minority co-productions in a special scheme. And then you also have a special section from last year dedicated to school films, which is school films and projects, meaning there is a school film or student film festival in Bratislava at the film school, and they would be applying for money there as well. And then Program 3, which offers scholarships, also scholarship scenes as a part of development, but it's actually more effective and more practical for you to get a scholarship than go for the first scheme, and you have more chances getting money there. And also in this scheme, workshops apply for funding. That means also there are international workshops taking place in Slovakia. I don't know, Slovak edition of Midpoint, the scriptwriting program, would apply here for its Slovak edition. Doc Incubator, the post-production or editing workshop for European films, having their Slovak edition in Slovakia would apply here. Then we have the public broadcaster. It's a Slovak television, for a couple of years now part of Radio and Television Slovakia. That's also a funding option. I did not put any amount of money just because I wasn't able to track it down, because basically the public broadcaster gets extra money from the government through the Ministry of Culture as an addition to its own budget, and it's a lot of money, but I haven't been able to track down the situation for this year and last year as to how it is divided, because actually the money, and now I'm not suggesting any foul handling of the money, but it's money that it's for their own in-house productions, for productions that are basically
outsourced.
Yeah, basically you give them a contract to do things for you, and there is also money for co-productions. I will come back to this kind of co-productions later. And what is also important, which is, for example, different in comparison to Czech Republic, which I like taking as a benchmark in many things. Also thanks to Jana having been working with us for a long time. We don't have any specialized funds, nor film centers that would be dealing especially with shorts and documentaries. That's why when I told you in the beginning that we are a film center as a part of the Film Institute, we are really 2 or 3 people dealing with archives, new films, short films, documentaries, everything. For that, of course, you cannot do everything, but we really do collaborate with, I don't know, small festivals, some associations who do events, and you will see examples of that later as well. We don't have any Institute of Documentary Film or any initiative for Balkan documentaries. We don't have that, so basically Slovak documentaries see the Prague IDF as their documentary film center. Okay, there are some figures. I mean, everything you will find in the catalog anyway, but you can more or less see how it's divided and how the money is divided. You see the requested amount, the amount of granted money, school films, including the projects, which are not too many, so let's talk about films anyway. A requested amount of 32 applications, more than 200,000 euro, awarded money to 23 projects, 85,000. But all that, if you want to see, I can show it to you in the book. Slovak documentaries, okay, you can see there are some Slovak ones, but basically we co-produce a lot, as I mentioned in the beginning. Small country with no money. Now we start to be more majority co-producer than minority. In the past, we were very often just a minority co-producer. The documentaries here you might have heard of. Those are interesting cases of co-productions like Moon Inside You, really Slovakia, Spain, France, Cooking History, Austria, Czech Republic. Velvet Terrorists is also kind of a nice case study, even though it's Slovenia here, not Croatia, but it's one of the few examples that Slovak majority production would be co-produced not only by traditional Czech partners, but also by Croatia. So this is Velvet Terrorists. For shorts, which I was actually concentrating much more on than documentaries, but later on I can talk more about documentaries. But basically funding documentaries is like any other full-length feature film within the fund, so I didn't want to go too much into details about applying for co-production, for support with the fund or the TV. I think this is very similar, like in many countries. What I did my research on was basically the Slovak shorts, which we work with, not as much as I would wish to. We don't have such a collaboration with film school, for example, like a Czech Film Center has. traditionally, again, it's mostly student films that have been or are presented mostly from the Bratislava Film School, not so much from other film school. We have 2 or 3 more, depending on what genre you're looking for. And it used to be mostly animation. There was a Slovak animation film in the 90s that got it almost to the student Oscars. In recent years, this is changing a little bit. It's more fiction and short documentary in terms of short films. We are having more professional shorts made in independent productions. Then you have co-productions, actually student co-produced with their school, which is also an option. And we even have some international co-productions in shorts. And very little experimental or video art or performance art or whatever you call it. And it's very similar point of view in our country as it is in Slovenia or Czech Republic. So basically artists don't really perceive themselves as filmmakers when they are doing video art or experimental. They use it as part of a project. Whether they work with filming or footage, it's still seen as a part of some different branch of arts, or visual arts, if I may call it like that. And it's basically residencies, galleries, stipendia, some NGOs and foundations. Residencies, artistic residences in special places in Slovakia are pretty common now. This is a result of my brainstorm. So how are our shorts financed? So there's no universal key, obviously, but I looked at credits of many selected shorts and also talked to several people working in shorts with school or independently. So basically, school films, the school has some basic minimal budget. They will provide you the very basic things you need. And they use this audiovisual fund scheme. A note, as I mentioned, some of them are co-produced. Audiovisual Fund has a regular scheme for shorts. As an independent producer, filmmaker, not a film student, you can apply with a short, even for development and then for production. We have public broadcaster, Slovak television, very little support, almost none, but we have actually here an example of a short film that was supported both by the fund and the television. They only now started supporting like these evening fairy tales. Whatever the children. Sandmännchen, Then we have foundations. I looked at several of them, and actually they were supporting short films. Okay, Telekom, Tatra Banka is one of the banks in Slovakia. Orange, Slovnaft, this big oil company in Slovakia, they do foundations. They have foundations that support their filmmakers, and also they support film projects. NGOs and special interest groups for special topics. Own investment, okay, pocket money, family, friends. Crowdfunding was used in very little cases, but I guess now it's very popular, so many people will be doing it, but not everybody knows how to do it. It's also difficult. MG, almost none. International co-productions, rare, but happens. We will see. Income from sales as investment for future, difficult, but happens. Okay, very quickly.
You still have your presentation because our time is a little bit...
I'm going quickly. Okay, sorry. Good that you stopped me.
Maybe just...
Okay, very quickly. These are the case studies and then I'm done. Pandas, you might have heard of, Slovakia, Czech Republic, co-production between FAMU and independent production company. So it was supported by the fund. And it has sales, which is important. And it's in Germany, in Hamburg. Tiger Fight, yes. Tiger Fight is a special case of Slovak majority production supported by the fund and co-produced between India and Austria. Very special combination. So you can do it differently, and it also has sales. Slovak shorts here, one of them, whatever, Pandas, you see exhibition. That's the case where you have a film that is financed fully by the audiovisual fund and the public broadcaster. It's 30 minutes, strange length, they supported it. So perhaps it shows you the way of the Slovak television. And this is the very latest thing in terms of short films. And you have documentaries, not experimental, but animation fiction documentary in 10 professional 10-minute films that are just entering cinemas, television, DVD and VOD. So that's basically it. You don't need to blah blah festivals. I talk too much. Okay, okay. Where to find out more? Contact me. That's my email in the back, and I am here. I am sorry. I'm going.
No. Not going, please. Thank you very much.